This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agner.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. My name is Jay Agner. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by the co-founders of Pangea.ai. We've got Keilian and Knudsen and Prags Mugunthan. Did I do it, boys? Did I get it right?
You almost did it. You got mine
Oh,
right, but I don't know about Keilian's. I mean,
Knudsen.
Knudsen is a tough scanner.
I
Knudsen.
didn't do the phonetics properly. I screwed myself. Anyway, hello, gentlemen. Very nice to meet you. I love your platform. Very cool. A lot to talk about. Let's start here. Keilian, since I messed your name up, you can go first. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And did that kind of have any impact on you being an entrepreneur in life?
Grew up, born and raised in Switzerland, born in Geneva, grew up in the mountains. I'm a mountain boy. I've been skiing my whole life till I was 18. American mother, Norwegian father. And I mean, I think the fact that I had this kind of multicultural upbringing, went to international school, kind of gave me a world view of, all the possibilities out there. Got to travel a bunch and then went to university in St. Andrews in Scotland, where I met Prags, and we were roommates for 3 years out of 4. But yeah, I think Switzerland and kind of being surrounded by quite a number of entrepreneurs from Norway, but also California, kind of gave me that entrepreneurial bug. I would say that I kind of wanted more, and I didn't want to necessarily sit in an office and kind of do office work. So I always wanted to build companies from the get-go.
Love that. Prox, how about you, buddy? Where'd you grow up? And let's end in the
Sure.
same place with St. Andrews, I guess.
Yeah, we met at St. Andrews, but my story is a little bit different. I was born in Sri Lanka, moved to Norway when I was 3, grew up, up in Oslo till I was 19, and I left to St. Andrews, where, where Kelly and I met, was there for 4 years. Then we moved out to Berlin after a couple of years, working. That's where we, built the company, and now I reside in Dubai. And I think for myself, obviously, the way I grew up impacted my view on entrepreneurship, especially the fact that in many ways I won the lottery to come to Norway, so from Sri Lanka, so I got all the opportunities that I could basically have in order to become an entrepreneur, because Norway is a pretty steady state in that way, that it gives you the opportunity from education to support to go to the best schools and take advantage of that system. So I think
Beautiful.
that, alongside meeting Keilian, we were more entrepreneurial than academic, to put it that way.
At what point did you guys realize or start to realize that, number one, you wanted to work together, but that you wanted to create a business together? And Progs, what was that process?
So I guess when we met, we, from the get-go, we started, brainstorming ideas, talking about Keilian had a gap year, I had a gap year, so we interchanged ideas on how the experiences that we had, the way he saw the world, the way I saw it, and, how we can potentially, do something together. And then Keilian was going to an internship in Norway, and, he basically spoke to the company and, allowed me to tag along as well. And that is basically where we first started working together. And that internship was also pivotal in us trying our first venture, and which we brought back to Scotland. And it was, I mean, Kelly can tell the story, he knows the business the best, but yeah, I leave the floor to him.
Yeah, let's hear the first business story. That's typically a good place to start. What did you guys try first, and what was the experience like?
Well, I think that the first business was quite a strange one. I mean, an offshore kind of sandblasting company that basically does maintenance of steel assets in a sustainable fashion was very hardware intensive. And so, we were basically in the workshop with the engineers figuring out this machinery. It was basically supposed to be focused on steel assets, but we wanted to try to see if we could actually use it across other types of surfaces, rocks, and so on. So we ended up building a whole business plan around how we were going to take this equipment and start cleaning buildings, which is very niche in Scotland. And we're transporting different rocks, different materials in these giant machines for a small kind of industrial company out of Norway. So, and that failed dramatically. We realized that we had no idea what we were doing, but we were good salespeople. So a lot of people wanted to, actually speak to us about it. But we realized that the actual technology itself was way too abrasive for the type of work we were trying to do with buildings. So we had to shut that down. And then we decided that we had another opportunity, which was actually the kind of the building block for us to kind of go into more digital and kind of the tech world. And that was, we felt there was a great opportunity to store memories and stories from the elderly generation that seemed to just be kind of passing away, but not leaving anything behind for future generations. So we wanted to capture those stories and memories. And I come from a family of storytellers, and that was kind of the foundation for us to say, why don't we build a business, sort of a digital memory bank, to capture these stories and memories of kind of all of these older people. And that's when we had to start to look for engineers, because we were non-technical. Two business guys had a bunch of ideas. We could sell stuff, get people excited, get investors on board, but we had no idea how to actually build a digital product. And that's where we kind of fell into very deep and gloomy rabbit hole that led us down this trap, realizing that it was very hard to hire software engineers. And after that, and losing the money and the time and the opportunity, we said, shit, it's really hard to hire engineering talent. And that was basically the kind of foundational elements of why we decided to build Digital Knights, to solve our own problem that we had in those early days in college.
Beautiful. Did you say Digital Knights? Was that the name of the company at the time?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
how we started.
Digital Knights, like KNI, like
Yeah,
the or okay, very cool. All right, and how did that evolve into Pangea? Either of you guys.
yeah, I think so. For us, going through that experience ourselves, we just realized that over time that this was not a unique experience to us, right? It's like every company, small, medium, large, has the same issue, right? It's really hard to hire the right dev team. It's a noisy market, it's a saturated market. So we thought, hey, why don't we make sense of it, right? And we built out this due diligence that basically analyzes and vets the hard skills of an agency, but at the same time the softer skills of an agency partner, which is their culture, their recruitment stats, what makes them special in their local market in order to recruit and retain talent, right? Once we had this due diligence basically built, we were able to really screen and benchmark dev agencies. And we started it as a service business, right? And that was called Digital Knights, which then after 4 years of, learning, the ropes as a service, we felt comfortable enough, and also we bootstrapped the business, so we saved the money to build the platform.
How do you guys survive as kind of serial entrepreneurs that are just trying one thing after another, right? Because I would assume a lot of people would try one of these things, they would fail, and they go, I guess entrepreneurship's not for me. I'm going to go work for somebody else. Number one, just how did you financially survive? And then just number two, how and why did you guys stick together as like as the solution here, right? Because you could easily see like, well, if that partnership didn't work, we're going to go try doing something by myself or go trying to work somewhere. Like, number one, how did you stay afloat? And then number two, how did you guys stay together over time?
I
Either one of you
think
guys.
after we started, or we failed with that one company for kind of the digital memory bank, we both realized that we had burnt a lot of our savings and then had to go and actually get jobs. So Prags went back to Norway, worked in a bank. I went and worked for a clean tech company for a couple of years between Switzerland and North Carolina. And then Prags was, fed up with the kind of the banking world, the corporate world, and we had kind of looked at a lot of different places where, Prags could kind of kick off and try to start something new again. And we had a friend living in Berlin who was like, this is the place to be in terms of startups. It was cheap. It was a good place to kind of get something going. And I was getting, kind of fed up with the clean tech business that I was in. So I basically said, I'm out. That was 2015, and we regrouped in Berlin in 2016, April. And Prague at the time was, pretty much broke. I had some savings left that I basically scooped together, and I was like, basically, let's just put this all on red and see if we figure it out. And so that was kind of what kind of let us that starting point for that first six to 7 months. And I think we burnt through all of those savings in those first 6 to 7 months. And then we basically, had the kind of the shortest time frame of building digital nights and basically having to throw in the towel. And then we were like, oh shit. And then we were in debt, had to go and get some, family and friends loans to just get out of our situation. And then we were like, either we're going to say that was a big disaster once again, or we're actually going to get it together and figure out how to make money. And then at that point we started really becoming creative with how we were going to monetize, start selling services. So that's kind of how we got through, but it wasn't an easy one, for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brogs. You have anything for that?
Yeah, no, I think I think the creativity, kicks in quite heavily when it is that dark, right? And you are liable to pay, people's salaries so they can go home for Christmas, and it was Christmas time, and we had a really like lackluster Christmas party, and I think at that point we had to get creative. And one of the things that we saw back then is that the demand side was obviously harder to generate demand, but on the supply side, everyone resonated with what we were trying to do from the agency's perspective, right? And they were like, we will jump on board. And I used to have 20, 30 calls, meetings per week with agencies. And what we thought is that how can we incorporate, as part of our vetting process, a fee that people can pay to join Pangea, because then we will also know that they're serious about the due diligence. They're not just getting listed on the platform. And that's basically how we, the payment for the suppliers came into play, and it became such an integral part of our business, because now it's just like it's part of our filtering, because if you don't understand our subscription, then most of the time you've never done sales and marketing before. So it really helped us also pinpoint and select the right agencies from the get-go.
Yeah. No, I love kind of providing some context and color to your journey there, because obviously, social media and just in general, everybody likes to kind of hear the success stories and like, oh, we made it and like we did this stuff, but it's like, okay, but you guys also had to like scrimp and save and borrow from friends and family, and like it wasn't just this easy track to like where you guys are today. So I'm glad we pulled some of that stuff out. Who was the first customer at Pangea? How did you guys get started? So you had this idea, you're like, we had this shitty time with our trying to find dev agencies, you spun up your own services. Talk about like kind of the spin up of Pangea and like getting that first customer. You don't have to name by name, but like who was it and like how did that happen?
Sure. I think the first customer also defined how Kayla and I got our responsibilities in the company, right? So like one of our friends that were building a neobank at the time, one of the most successful neobanks now in Europe, he basically said, "Hey, we're working with this great team out in Romania. If you're thinking about pursuing this path, it's kind of true and tested because we worked with them." So I sent a cold email to the founder, met up for a coffee, had no idea what he was saying in the first meeting, but I said, this is what we want to do, and we may have a client for you. And then, I rang up Kelly, he was in the US at the time. And I said, hey, we have one partner, like an agency partner that, is, cool with our commercials and willing to give this a shot. And then Kelly said, that's fine. He's going to try and get a client. And then he basically went to Switzerland, visited a co-working place, got introduced to these two young kids that basically wanted to build a 3D gardening, mapping, and a tools platform. And that was the first customer. And we
Wow.
displayed them, and then we matched them, and that was basically a month between each other. And then we were like, okay, we have a first POC, right? And it was a 70K project, right? That ran for like 5 months, and MVP was out. They won a couple of competitions, so we saw, hey, this is something that we can do.
Well, who's the customer today? And how has it changed since that first 3D gardening platform, which sounds very interesting, but sounds like hilariously exactly what, some young founders that like have no idea what monetizing an application means. But just curious, like what, you do all this stuff, you make all these pivots along the way. Where are you guys today for who you're targeting as your customer? And just talk about how that kind of evolved from your first customer.
I think that first customer, very early stage, kind of, I would say pre-seed at best. So that was kind of the foundation. And, it was a lot of fake it till you make it. It's, two business guys that say, they're going to vet some agencies on the one side and tell them who's good and who's not. And then to tell clients like, oh, we have this fantastic vetted network of agencies. And basically it was a lot of bullshit,
Mhm.
from the get go. But then, we built up progressively. What we did then was like we cast the net really wide and we thought, oh, we're going to do enterprise or we're going to do mid market and we're going to do scale ups and startups and we're going to do it all, which was very painful. And I would say not the way to go because we really kind of spent a lot of time. And when we kind of went up the enterprise ladder, being so small, we were just dragged along by these large German enterprise, Deutsche Bank, Deutsche Bahn, ThyssenKrupp, all of these that they could just have meeting after meeting and you were getting nowhere. And for them,
Mhm.
it didn't matter. But for us, it was just, killing our business, killing our time, and the return on investment wasn't there. And I think where we are today, I would say that we still very much kind of help the startup community. I would say probably 65 to 70% of our business are startups and scale ups, more weighted towards the kind of the scale ups. So seed, series A plus. And then I would say kind of the mid market segment is another one. So these companies that are anywhere between, 500 to a couple thousand is where we kind of position ourselves. So that makes up the remainder of the kind of the 30%. But yeah, we really like the kind of the startup scale up community because it's who we are as kind of entrepreneurs, and we kind of want to help others out there and business owners to find the best talent for the various kind of projects and engagements that they're looking for. So we do both project based work and team augmentation, so adding bandwidth to already existing teams but remotely basically.
Got it. Yeah, I think when you're a two-sided marketplace, you almost kind of have to fake it till you make it a little bit because you have to source the people and then the client, and you're like you just lightning has to strike twice for that to be the exact same time with the exact right fit, and like so there's always, and I think fake it till you make it's a little bit of a dirty term at at this point. It's like it almost seems disingenuous, but I mean you kind of have to kickstart a marketplace like that with some sort of you know creative descriptions of who you have and who's available and how you're working with people. And you're not going to be dishonest, but like, maybe you have conversations with a company that might be a partner. Maybe they're not fully locked in as a partner yet, but you've had the conversations and you could at least say with some honesty that, that we have a good network of engineers that you can go talk to. Right. So I like the fact that you guys did that, but in a way that was like, within the bounds of being honest. You're working towards, kind of creating a network of companies, and as a good way to kickstart it. If you guys had to start over again tomorrow, same agency, same business, same customers, etc., what would be step one? Either one of you guys.
I think, no, go ahead, Gil.
I mean, I think for me, one of the things that I think we're good at sales. We went out and kind of did a lot of manual meetings, going to different events, speaking with people, traveling to different places. That's all good, the biz dev stuff that you need to do. And I think sales is absolutely one of the most important things that you need to kind of focus on when starting a business. So I think from that perspective, we did as good as we can. We enter into one of the largest tech hubs. You have no contacts, no one in the tech space, so you got to go out there and actually build relationships. So it was a tall order and a very steep mountain to climb. But I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the things we discounted massively from the get-go, which I wish we would have kind of done straight off the bat, is one, work more on personal branding for ourselves as founders and really kind of do a lot more talking events, do a lot more kind of webinars, podcasts, position ourselves as kind of industry leaders. Maybe not straight off the bat, but like, definitely like 12, 24 months in, I think we should have kind of started to be more visible. We were very much the dark knights. I mean, we were digital knights, but I would say we were the dark knights because we were just not around. And I think marketing, right? I mean, understanding and kind of getting someone in on that kind of marketing, SEO, ads, and really kind of investing into that kind of marketing engine from the start. I mean, ads was not really something we could afford, but
Mm-hmm.
SEO and really kind of getting someone on board with us that understood marketing. We went for way too long without really investing into marketing, which at the end of the day is kind of that scalable go to market channel to acquire new leads. And so we did a lot of the biz dev stuff, I think, pretty well, but the marketing stuff I think was just kind of ignored because we didn't understand it wasn't our thing. So we just ignored, and that didn't help us at all. And I think just another point maybe is I think we hired a ton of bad people over the years. I mean, it's absolutely embarrassing being in the talent space and being as bad as we were to hire our own people. And I think we kept talking about the hire slow, fire fast, but we didn't really stick to that rule. And I think that would have been good to have kind of set a structure, a DNA of profile of people we needed, not hire a bunch of people that we didn't need, but we thought we needed. So nice to haves, but really focus on the must haves. And so I think starting again, really focusing on kind of that hiring plan and how to bring on the right people when you need them, and then fire fast when you start to see those red flags would have helped a lot for sure.
Love that. What you got, Progs? Anything?
Yeah, I think on our side, there was a lot of chaos and a lot of hustle. Like I mean, we were young, right? We were 26, 25, starting out. So we had a lot of energy to hustle, right? So but it was no system to it. There was no processes. So like a lot of the issues that we kind of started having, you have technical bloat, right? Like, when you're building a product, but similarly in a company, you have bloating in terms of people you have. And we were at one point 45 people because Keilian and I had no processes. With the business were like rising in numbers, we hired people to solve the problem, right? And I think now, if we are to build any business, right, like it's like we will probably be a lot more process driven from the get-go, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
make sure that there are processes in place, because that's what ended up happening is that after hustling and doing a lot of stuff and hiring a lot of people, we spent three years like building processes in the company, which prepared us to become a fully remote company, right, as well, and really take advantage of the COVID pump that basically came our
Mm-hmm.
way. But then we were prepared, right? We would never have been prepared if we would have just run it as we did in the early days, right? Like, we
Mm-hmm.
not taking on the demand, but we were able to take on ample demand as a six-man team back in 2021, 2022, because our processes were just flawless. And that
Mm-hmm.
is something I think, but it took us 3 years to build it, as opposed to having done that from the get-go. So I think that's one of the things that I will always advise founders. It's like, it's great, you have to do the biz dev part, but to fully disregard any processes will lead to a lot of bloat in the company that you need to fix eventually.
Give me a good example of processes that are you talking like establish them and then document them and kind of make them kind of a reproducible engine? Like, give me one of your processes that you think you didn't have that you guys built in that 3 years that is still carrying you guys today.
So, for example, in the early days, right, when we had actually a client on the hook, right, it was big commotion in the company, right? We had, Keilian with one of our sales guys on the call taking notes, right, like manually, then, basically taking those notes, packaging that over to the agency team that then, went manually to the agencies and shared these briefs, with no automation. So you had to write the email or pick up the phone and call them. So it was very much like, a brokerage house, very
Mm-hmm.
much service orientated, right? And at that capacity, we could maybe service 4 briefs per week, right? And we were a lot of people, right, at that time. So, what we did is that we automated that whole process where it takes basically the client, you know, 2-3 minutes to submit a brief. And for us to process the brief, it takes maximum 15 minutes with like additional notes and to get
Mm-hmm.
feedback from the agencies and match them. Like, our input there is 15 minutes. And that should be the input, because we have all the data from the onboarding, from the due diligence. It shouldn't take much. But back in the day, that was one of the things that really capped our growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of commotion and a lot of hustle to get these two sides to meet.
I love that. I love that you tied capping growth to something as boring as documenting processes, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like it's not the exciting stuff, it's not
No,
the
it
sexy
is.
stuff. The fun stuff is the biz dev and landing sales and doing whatever. But I love that I mean, because everybody's chasing this like growth thing, grow, and like sometimes you don't even realize the things that are kind of preventing that, which is sometimes just having your foundational processes documented and understood by everybody, and you're continually improving them and things like that. So absolutely love that. All right, I try to talk to you guys all day, and I'm sure I will. We're going to be friends after this, I have a feeling. Let's end with one question, same question for both of you guys. Take it one at a time. We can start with Keilian. What would you do if you know you wouldn't be able to fail? So if you could do anything on earth and you knew you wouldn't fail, what would it be?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I'll let Prags go first.
Oh, there you go. See, people don't normally have the option to just defer. So, but I'm glad you have two of you. So, Prags, I hope you have a good answer.
I think, in this day and age, if we couldn't fail, I mean, regardless, I think, we are so used to failure that we would do it anyhow. But if we couldn't, we'd probably do something in the intersection between blockchain and AI. That will probably
Okay.
be where we will be at. And we will have a venture if that's, real world tokenization, and use AI to, accelerate that growth. That's probably worth exploring.
Love it. Killian? I'm going to change yours, Killian, make it maybe harder or easier for you. Non-business related. If you could do anything on earth and you knew you wouldn't fail, what would it be?
I think I would absolutely love, because I know that it's something that's really hard to crack and a lot of people just can't get there. But I've started doing, meditation, but it's a really tough thing to crack and I keep failing at it and it just doesn't work. But I'm starting to see the glimmers of what it can do and how it can kind of set me up for success. So I would absolutely love to kind of master meditation if I could do that right and take it all the way.
You will. I have faith in you. I'm a big meditator and I believe very much it's the same thing. It's frustrating at first. It's like super frustrating. You get angry and you're like, why isn't this working? But eventually you kind of have like a breakthrough and it's awesome. All right. Well, you guys are great. I love the story, love the platform. Like I said, I think we'll probably continue our talks long after this podcast, hopefully, and stay friends. But if people want to find more about Pangea, how do they do that? And if they want to reach out to you guys individually, what's the best channel to do that?
So they can find us obviously on Pangea.ai. If they want to reach out to Kelly and I, we are best found on LinkedIn. So you can just search up our names and DM us, and we can jump on a call. Our calendars are also on LinkedIn, and you can book a call anytime.
Beautiful. All right, guys. Well, hey, have a good rest of your week. I will send people your way. You got something else, Progs? Are you good?
No, all is good.
All right. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of your
Thanks
week.
a lot,
And
man.
appreciate you being on, guys.
Thanks
See
a lot,
you.
man.
Take
Super.
care.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
See you guys.